Aloha everyone, welcome to Contraflow show, the anti-traffic report. My name is Doug, and I have a special guest here, Kimberlee Cline. She is from SWOP, Sacramento.
That's right.
And SWOP stands for?
The Sex Workers Outreach Project.
Sex Worker Outreach Project. And what do you guys do?
Well, SWOP is a nationwide network. We have chapters all over the mainland.
Okay.
And it's a sex worker-led group. We organize around sex workers, labor, and human rights.
Okay.
And we advocate for the decriminalization of prostitution.
Decriminalization. A lot of people get the legal terms confused. What's the difference between decriminalization and legalization?
So legalization would mean that sex work continues to be regulated through penal codes, which are criminal codes. It means that the police are involved with regulating the industry, which sets it apart from other industries. We're saying sex work is work. Let's regulate this through decriminalization rather than legalization, which means that we take it out of the penal codes, we regulate it through public health and labor standards rather than by criminal code. And we're also advocating to include the voices of sex workers in determining what kind of regulations come after removing the criminal codes.
So decriminalization would just mean taking away the language in the bill that makes it not legal to exchange sex for money. Is that decriminalizing it?
Yes.
Making it no longer a crime?
Makes it no longer a crime. It's no longer in the penal code.
In the penal code. So that keeps cops out of it. But then there's other types of codes. I'm trying to explain the codes.
Right, so decriminalization doesn't just mean that there is a free-for-all with no regulation.
Mm-hmm.
It means that it's not regulated through the criminal codes.
Okay, so it'd be a labor type of thing, or I still don't understand how it all works.
Yeah, so like the state of Hawaii has labor laws that protect employees in all kinds of different markets. The state of Hawaii has environmental codes and zoning codes for what kind of businesses can operate in particular regions of the islands.
I see.
So those kind of laws would apply to sex work, and we'd be able to have a real conversation about what is sex work, where does it happen, how is it safest. You know, right now we don't have a real conversation about that, so sex work happens in a lot of underground ways that have varying levels of safety and vulnerability to violence or danger and things. So we're saying let's have a real conversation about how this industry actually operates. Let's have a real conversation about the nature of how we enforce the prohibition. Because I think that people who think that prohibiting prostitution is a good idea, the things that they are opposed to, like exploitation of women and underage people, the laws that make sex workers criminals actually make it a lot easier for the police to violate and abuse sex workers. So sex workers find themselves in a situation where not only are they vulnerable to being harassed by members of the public, when they are harassed, they can't go to the police because they're criminals, and often, you know, when sex workers say, this person harmed me, sex workers are not believed and not trusted. So we're saying, stop saying that the people we consent to work with are criminals, and believe us when we say that we've been harmed. We want to be recognized as a legitimate occupation, and we don't want it just to be assumed that we are somehow, you know, emotionally or intellectually compromised because we choose to do sex work.
I see. Yeah, there seems to be some kind of misunderstanding that everybody who hires a sex worker has some kind of ill intent towards us. And that's not the case for me. I haven't encountered that, but I guess if I did encounter something like that, I'd kind of be afraid to go to the cops to say, like, well, so what is, does decriminalizing sex work, does that change any other laws or legalize any other type of abuse? Because that seems to be what the message is from the people that are anti-sex work in general. misinforming people?
All of the laws that prohibit human trafficking, the laws that prohibit labor exploitation, no matter what industry it's in, you know, the laws that say that rape is illegal, force, fraud, and coercion are illegal, sex with people who can't give consent is illegal. That includes, in Hawaii, people under 16. So all of those laws remain. It's still illegal to violate people. The reason this is so confusing is because there has become this conflation of human trafficking and consensual sex work. The public tends to not believe that it's possible for somebody to choose sex work as a conscious, healthy choice. It's always assumed that sex work is caused by force, fraud, or coercion, or you know, some sort of compromise, like a drug addiction or debt or something, that there's always some sort of coercive nature toward the work. That's an enormous misunderstanding. That's not true at all. And those for whom it is true are not served by lumping forced sex work and other kinds of exploitation in with consensual sex work. We're talking about making it no longer illegal for two adults to agree to exchange sex for money. That's it. There has to be consent, and the Hawaii laws only address adults over 18.
Cool. So we're talking about consensual adults.
Consenting adults.
Okay. So is there any place in the world where decriminalization seems to work that you think?
Yeah, New Zealand was the first country to decriminalize prostitution, you know, throughout the land, and they've had a lot of success there. Also, New South Wales in Australia. The states in Australia have a variety of different models, ranging from full criminalization to decrim to legalization, and like, you know, variations in between. So I've actually gone to Australia and worked in Queensland and New South Wales.
Okay.
And it's a pretty good system there in New South Wales. You have independent sex workers working privately out of hotels and apartments. Simultaneously, you have licensed brothels functioning in a public, like, walk-up kind of way, like other businesses, and they have their own rules and regulations. There are strip clubs and massage parlors and everything in between. And while I was there, I was able to get adequate, non-judgmental medical treatment, which was particularly useful. You know, people think that by being criminals, sex workers are only impacted by police and the court systems and all of these things, but actually the stigma that's perpetuated by our criminal status and all of the misrepresentations of what we actually do at our jobs, this bleeds out into other areas of our personal lives, so that our medical care professionals don't give us adequate treatment or give us discriminatory treatment. You know, all kinds of conflicts like that come up because of things that people assume about sex workers, not because of facts about sex workers.
Just what they've heard or seen on TV, and then they assume these things and kind of treat you that way if you go to seek any type of either medical help or legal help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been hearing about that. So, was it different in Queensland? What is their model?
Their model is legalization. So they have some specific rules, like it wasn't okay for two sex workers to share an apartment and work together. So this is like an example of legalization versus decriminalization. So in Queensland, there are ways that sex work happens that would be defined criminal. So two girls sharing an apartment together would be criminally illegal in
That
Queensland.
seems like a safety
Whereas
measure.
in New South Wales, it's okay to share an apartment. Like, there's no penalty for that. And it absolutely is a safety measure. The whole purpose of sharing an apartment and sharing clients and doing duos together. I mean, it's fun to do duos together, but also, you're safer when there are two of you.
There's somebody else around.
Somebody else around, or at least somebody who knows where you're at and knows when someone's there with you. So sharing a place is a really important safety measure. Here in the U.S., when sex workers share an apartment, it's considered maintaining a place for the purpose of prostitution or brothel keeping, and that's an enhanced penalty. So if two sex workers are working together, independently, that sex worker is really only committing a low-level misdemeanor just by exchanging sex for money. But by working together to be safer, now they're breaking laws that make it a felony with enhanced charges. So you've got brothel keeping, you've got promoting or introducing people for the purpose or intent of prostitution. These carry heavier penalties than just the basic exchange of sex for money. And again, the people who push these laws, they think they have good intentions. They think that they are protecting sex workers from being forced into the work by somebody else or being exploited by some form of a manager or boss. But how the laws actually get enforced is these laws are used against us, used against the sex workers.
So you're in trouble for trying to work safer.
For being safer, yeah.
Right on. You could also, just having a prostitution conviction or this kind of brothel kind of finagling, you could lose your place, yeah? Like the place where you live or that you're working out of?
Oh yeah, housing discrimination and future employment discrimination.
Yeah.
The discrimination seeps out into every area of our lives.
So this other bill that's going on in Hawaii, SB, is it 264, I believe? That's to vacate somebody's record of any kind of prostitution conviction?
Yeah, we're hoping that we'll get a hearing on that bill this week. This will, after 3 years, a person who has a prostitution-related conviction can have their record vacated so that the record of that arrest and conviction will be wiped from their record automatically 3 years, as long as they haven't gotten into any other trouble during that 3 years. So keep your record clean for 3 years. You can have your prostitution charges vacated.
Record clear of any other charges or just prostitution?
Only basic prostitution charges. I don't think this would apply to other charges, like the felony charges.
Okay. So the way it is right now, the way things are criminalized, they think that they're helping people, namely women mostly, but they're actually keeping them out of the job market by arresting them.
Yeah, you give women a prostitution arrest on their record, and it's impossible to get another job.
Yeah, and that just creates some kind of assumption about this person who's applying for the job.
And lots of sex workers are not women, by the way.
Yeah.
But women are the ones who get arrested. Like, that's really what we're talking about.
That's
when
what
we're
it's
talking about decriminalization.
Yeah, because it seems like and it seems to affect more people that are street-based working.
Definitely affects street-based people, people who are at an economic disadvantage who can't afford to access their sex work in more private spaces, and trans people who are social targets anyway for discrimination. This is just a law that can be selectively enforced with the intention of targeting specific communities like Black trans women specifically.
It seems like they're just more visible and assumed to be sex workers just by walking out in public.
Yeah,
at a certain time in a certain
Black
clothes.
women and as gender variant people, they are targets of other kinds of discrimination anyway. Like those discriminations are like pervasive and going to continue, and if we can challenge the prostitution laws, that's one less tool that can be used against this community.
Right on. So right now, does it seem very likely that we're going to get a hearing on the decriminalization bill?
Well, we won't know until January or February next year, 2018.
Is that how it works?
And
Okay.
we're very optimistic. We've got 10 months to work on educating Hawaii voters and to get them to educate and inform their representatives and senators. So I'm optimistic. I'm excited about the opportunity we have here to educate the public and let people know really what the sex industry is about, how it actually works, and why they don't have to be afraid of sex workers.
Because there's a lot of sex workers out there you may not even
Everywhere,
realize
all around you,
are
all the
sex workers.
time.
And it works on so many different levels. Like the bill criminalizing people, it doesn't affect a lot of people. Like myself, where I work, I just talk to people from behind the counter at my retail job. So it's not really, I'm not visible, whereas other people, you know, that are out on the street, they're easy, like we know what they're doing.
Yep,
so,
yep.
So it seems to disproportionately target people. Well, what does SWOP do, like in Sacramento, say? Like, how do you guys perform?
Well, in SWOP Sacramento, we started off with a needs assessment. During 2014 and 2015, we interviewed 48 sex workers. They were primarily street-based sex workers. And we found out from them what their experience was like on the street, what kind of histories of violence they had, what kind of histories of encounters with law enforcement they had. We found that 8% returned to the street after a website called My SF Redbook was shut down, or it's My Redbook and sfredbook.com. Those websites were shut down, and this led to a lot of women having to go back to street work, and that's why we wanted to talk to them and find out kind of, you know, how did they end up where they were they going, and what kind of patterns were they seeing. 27% had experienced violence at the hands of police officers. So we have created programs specifically targeting this group. At the end, we ask them what they need. They basically need housing, which is really hard for us to secure for them. Food regularly, so we've partnered with some churches who give us food that we're able to distribute to sex worker families.
Do the churches know where their efforts are being directed towards sex worker issues, or?
They do, and this is a great group of people who, you know, a lot of them are church people now who've had their own rough paths, and you know, they turn to faith and they got their lives straightened out, and this is how they pay it forward. They do food banking for other groups that are doing like small community organizing. They have a good system out there. It's pretty cool.
Right on.
Yeah.
One of the first videos I saw of you were, it was about the Craigslist adult services part being shut down. And now a lot of people are sort of congratulating themselves for getting, what's the most recent one that got shut down?
Backpage.
Backpage.
Adult services.
And I think they don't understand that, like, Backpage and all those online forums are a way for sex workers to kind of create community and, you know, almost screen clients that way. But also, it seems like the websites themselves were collaborating in trying to find abusers or any kind of non-sex work related things, other nefarious things.
That's one of the more puzzling things about this. You know, people like Kamala Harris are claiming that they want to stop exploitation of children. One of the leading organizations in the country, Children of the Night, who actually have a track record of helping children, which cannot be said for a lot of the anti-human trafficking groups that exist right now, but Children of the Night has a reliable track record. They have said that working with Backpage was critical for them, that it helped them not only find people who voluntarily wanted to get out of the business by calling them, but they were able to be there to receive calls, and they were visible both to the workers and the clients. If somebody wanted to report that they thought somebody was in trouble, that they thought someone was underage, that they thought someone was being forced, the Backpage website had a link right there to Children of the Night.
Wow.
And the executive director of Children of the Night has said in the media that Backpage was consistently cooperative with her and law enforcement's efforts to protect people who might get exploited. She said that they lost this as a tool.
Yeah, it seems like it's
Shutting
a tool
it down
to
didn't help.
And it just, all the people that were advertising on any of these websites, that doesn't just losing that venue to advertise doesn't mean that the reason that they're doing sex work is automatically gone as well.
Exactly.
It's about money. We still need the money.
If you really want to fight human trafficking, you have to fight poverty.
Exactly, yeah, it's about poverty. And it seems like a lot of international human rights organizations agree that decriminalization of sex work is key to fighting trafficking as well.
Amnesty International, the World Health Organization, Lambda Legal,
UN
the
AIDS,
American Civil Liberties Union,
Open Societies,
yeah. Open Society Foundations, yep.
They'll see, they understand.
They understand.
And even the Global Alliance Against Trafficking Women, because there's another thing where people think they're either bringing up the Swedish model, Nordic model, end approach, or end demand approach, which are all kind of the same thing, where they just target sex worker clients, thinking that if the sex worker is decriminalized, but the clients are criminalized, that's helping everybody.
Nope, it's not helping anybody, not at all.
Why not?
You can't criminalize one half of a transaction, first of all. Like, that is, like, unenforceable. Like,
yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't it create also a surveillance kind of situation for the sex worker? Because
right. Yeah. Well, one of our keys for staying safe is that clients are willing to be forthcoming with information about themselves so that we can verify who they are before we put ourselves into an alone situation with them. When they have to be afraid of being arrested, they don't know which sex workers are undercover cops, so they're less willing to be forthcoming. This creates an environment that makes it really easy for predators. Predators are opportunistic. Predators want to target people that they think they can get away with hurting. So when sex workers are having to function in this black market, sex workers are easier targets for predators. Whether it's under the in-demand model where they're supposedly only arresting the men, but remember, these in-demand style bills also include laws against sharing the apartments, laws against sharing clients. So ultimately, these in-demand laws end up being enforced against individual sex workers who have shared an apartment with another sex worker or introduced a client to another sex worker. They don't really catch traffickers.
Yeah.
The system is not designed to do that. The system is designed to punish somebody so that politicians could say, we're doing something because there's this issue that has a lot of public outcry because there is a huge rescue industry that is profiting off of getting churches around the world to donate to their anti-human trafficking efforts. And that's big money. So
they need victims.
The lies continue. Yeah, they need to continue to lie to the public about this. And it's easy for them to get away with it because it's hard and it's dangerous for sex workers to come out here publicly and be honest about our work.
Yeah, we can't speak for ourselves. So
most of us are hiding.
Yeah, and then all the people that have nonprofits are able to say whatever they want without any kind of argument because the people that they claim to be helping, we can't speak for ourselves. So we're spoken for, we're spoken over, we're spoken about, but we're not spoken with.
That's right.
Yeah, so.
Well, hopefully Hawaii is going to lead the way on this and show the rest of the country how it needs to be done. Decriminalize, create sensible, healthy regulations that are informed by the expertise of the people who actually do the work. Nothing about us without us. Nothing about us without us. Decriminalizing something isn't necessarily going to bring an end to any type of violence, but it empowers the person in sex work to report it, correct? Because we're not going there like, hi, I'm a criminal and I was just violated. So right, I mean, any citizen can be violated in some way. It's just that when sex workers are violated, they're told that if they want to press charges, they're also going to get arrested because they were breaking the law. So it disincentivizes anybody from reporting anything. Yeah. Looks like we have to try to educate the public more about the differences between the different legal models and its effects on people that are directly affected by these laws. Yes. And so, and to be educated, you know, the first place to start, I think, is to listen to sex workers. To sex workers. Where can we find some sex worker voices? Well, you should probably check out the website that is dedicated to educating about the Hawaii bills. So that is decrimhawaii.wordpress.com.
Okay.
You can put that on the screen, right?
Yeah, I can do that. So decrimhawaii.wordpress.com.
decrimhawaii.wordpress.com.
Okay.
And yeah, that's the first place to start. Definitely Sex Workers Outreach Project. Hopefully we're going to have a Honolulu chapter here pretty soon.
Do it. And then, cool. So, thank you, Kimberlee.
Thank you. This has been great.
Right on. Thank you for coming to Hawaii, too, to help us, because I think we need to get our stuff kind of everybody on the same page and educate ourselves, because I think as in the sex worker rights movement, we all know that we don't know everything. And so it seems like we're more willing to learn, and it feels like the people that have these nonprofits out there, they claim to know everything. And when you introduce something to them that they're unfamiliar with, they kind of freak out. And they deny it, and they claim that they have all the answers.
When sex workers start telling the truth about our stories, we shake their worldview. And that's hard for people. And you know, sex workers are also very skilled at being with people in their places of vulnerability. So we can hang, we can handle it. People need to be ready to hear our truth.
Are you guys ready? We are. Cool. Well, thank you, Kimberlee.
Thank you so
much. Right on.
much.
Cool. This is cool. And thanks for watching Contraflow show, you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, look up the websites and listen to some sex workers before you make decisions about us. Listen to us.
Yeah.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Right on. Cool.